Hello, and welcome back to Chapter 2 of the Test Modeler 101 series. In this module, we'll be covering over how to create your first model. We'll go over how to create a model inside of Test Modeler, the different components available to you, and how to model out an existing system or requirement. So we'll be modeling out an authentication system from our e-commerce demo website, Magento. The link to the website will be included in the description below if you'd like to follow along. And we want to create a model that represents the following logic here. So we'll want to model out an authenticated path only for a valid username and valid password, and any other invalid combination of either the username or password is invalid and not authenticated. And here we are inside of Test Modeler in our new project. We're just inside of the examples folder, and we'll want to click on New Model. And we'll go ahead and give this a name. So we'll call it our login model and press create. We'll see our new model available to us. So let's go ahead and open it up. Test Modeler uses 8 actions from the BPMN language to construct models. We have a start node that's the trigger for the beginning of the process. So let's go ahead and drag that in. And we have an end node that terminates the process. We'll put in 2, one for the authenticated state and one for the inauthenticated state. Putting the end nodes at the start of the process helps to visualize the end states for all of our paths. So let's go ahead and rename these to authenticated and not authenticated. A condition marks a fork in the path through the system's logic, for example, when a decision is made or when test data is entered. And in our model, the first criteria is deciding whether or not that the username the customer entered is valid or invalid. So let's drag in a condition block, and we'll link that up to our start node, and we can rename this one valid username. It's helpful to think of conditions as questions with all of the possible answers following it. Next, we'll want to put the answers to our questions in a task block. So a task is any activity that's performed either by the user or by the system. And in our case, a user can put in either a valid username or invalid username. So we'll drag 2 task blocks and connect them up to our valid username condition. And we can rename this one valid and the other invalid. The blue waypoint allows us to overlay test automation at any point in the model. So we'll know that we'll have automation in the future to input in our test data and web page automation. So we'll put in 2 waypoints as placeholders behind these task blocks. And like before, we'll connect these up. Okay, now that we've modeled out our username, we're going to follow the same logic for our password condition. So we know that an invalid username cannot move forward even with a valid password, so we can connect this waypoint up to our not authenticated state. If a customer puts in a valid username, then the next condition would be to enter a password. So let's drag in another condition block, connect it up to our valid waypoint, and we'll rename this one to valid password. And since this one has the same answers as the condition before it, we could save ourselves a bit of time. Press Shift while clicking on our task blocks and waypoints, copy that, and paste it. And we'll connect our valid password up to these 2 task blocks here. And now we can link up our valid username and password combination to our authenticated state and our valid username but invalid password to our not authenticated state. There's a few other things we can do inside of a model. We can actually import other models to a master model using our subflow action. So for example, this login model might be reused as part of a larger end-to-end model for checking out an item or doing any other action on the web page. So we'll be covering subflows and details in Chapter 6 of this series. Another thing you can do is add a pool to visually divide the logic of a model. You can drag and drop any of the existing actions on the screen, or you can add in new ones to each of the lanes. And lastly, notes are used to add comments to a model. They don't actually affect the logic specified by other actions, but they're helpful to add notes. And from this model, we can generate test cases, test data, and automation scripts. We'll go into detail on how to do this in the upcoming chapters.